The ship called the Lasting Dawn disappeared from Earth's records 300 years ago. It vanished during the chaos of the Third Resource War, when nations were too busy fighting each other to notice that 12,000 people had fled into the darkness of space. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of that ship and watched Earth grow smaller through the rear cameras. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much war. He had spent 30 years serving his planet, and in return, he had watched humanity tear itself apart over water, over oil, over land that would be worthless in a century. "We are clear of the tracking satellites," his navigation officer reported. Nodded slowly. "Good, set course for 442. We have a long journey ahead." The journey took 47 years. Most of the colonists slept in cryogenic pods, their bodies frozen in time while the ship crawled across the void between stars. Himself went into sleep after the first decade, leaving the ship in the hands of a rotating crew who aged and died and were replaced by their children. When they finally arrived at 442, they found exactly what it hoped for, a system that nobody wanted. The star was a dying red dwarf, too dim and too cold for most species to consider valuable. The planets were either frozen rocks or balls of poisonous gas, but the moons, 7 moons orbiting the largest gas giant, had something precious. They had water ice. They had stable geology. They had everything humans needed to build a new home, hidden from a universe that didn't know they existed. Died 14 years after landing, but his vision lived on. His daughter, Park, took over the leadership, then her son, then his daughter. Generation after generation, the colonists dug deeper into those 7 moons. They built cities underground, connected by tunnels and transport tubes. They developed new technologies because they had no choice. There was no Earth to send them supplies, no other humans to trade with. They called their new civilization New, after the ancient Korean kingdom that had survived against impossible odds. 300 years passed. Director Sara stood in her office on Moon 3, looking at a holographic display of her civilization. She was 61 years old, with short black hair turning silver at the temples and a face that showed both kindness and steel. She had led New for 12 years, and in that time, she had overseen the construction of 3 new cities and the birth of 50 million children. The population of New had reached 890 million humans. Their fusion reactors produced more power than they could use. Their ships could fold space itself, jumping across light years in moments. Their medical technology had pushed the average past 140 years. And nobody in the galaxy knew they were there. Sara liked it that way. The universe was full of alien species, hundreds of them organized into something called the Galactic Concord. New had been watching them for 2 centuries, listening to their communications, studying their wars and their treaties. They had learned that the Conquered viewed humans as primitives, a species still fighting over resources on there, not worth contacting for at least another 1,000 years. That suited New perfectly. They were not ready to reveal themselves, not yet. But fate had other plans. The alert came at 3:47 in the morning station time. Sara was pulled from sleep by the urgent tone of her personal communicator. She answered it to find the face of Han, her intelligence chief, looking worried. "Director, we have a problem," said. "One of our deep space probes went offline 6 months ago. We assumed it was a malfunction. It wasn't." Sara sat up in bed, suddenly very awake. "Explain." "The probe was captured by the hegemony. There were beings that looked like giant mantises with compound eyes and 4 arms. They controlled 17 star systems and were known throughout the Conquered as aggressive expansionists. They were also known for their intelligence operations, which were among the best in the galaxy." "How much did they get from the probe?" Sara asked. "Unknown, but the probe's data core contained fragments of our language, our star charts, and our power signatures. If they analyzed it properly." Paused. "They know we exist, Director. They know approximately where we are, and they're coming to investigate. Sora closed her eyes for a moment, processing this information. 300 years of hiding, and now it was over because of a single probe malfunction. How long do we have? Their scout fleet is already in transit, 42 ships. They'll reach our outer perimeter in approximately 6 days. 6 days, not enough time to evacuate, not enough time to relocate their entire civilization, but perhaps enough time to send a message. Sora opened her eyes. Wake the council and get me Admiral. 12 light-years away, First Observer reviewed the data from the captured probe for the 100th time. His compound eyes could process information faster than most species, but what he was seeing made no sense. The probe was clearly human-made. The language fragments matched Earth broadcasts that the hegemony had been monitoring for decades, but the technology was wrong, impossibly wrong. The power output readings suggested a fusion reactor that operated at 97% efficiency. The best reactors barely managed 71%. The materials used in the probe's hull were alloys that shouldn't exist, combinations of metals that required temperatures and pressures beyond anything the hegemony could produce. And the star charts showed something terrifying, a complete map of military positions, accurate to within a few kilometers. Brought his findings to the Hegemony Council, a gathering of the 12 most powerful in their civilization. They sat in a semicircle of elevated platforms, looking down at him with expressions of skepticism. "You expect us to believe," said Council Leader, "that humans have established a secret colony more advanced than our own civilization, the same humans who are still burning fossil fuels on there." "I expect you to believe the evidence," replied. "The probe is real, the technology is real, and whoever built it knows far more about us than we know about them." "Impossible," another council member scoffed. "Humans are primitives, everyone knows this." "Everyone knew they were peaceful," said quietly, "until they conquered 3 systems in a single month." The chamber fell silent. The war had been a painful lesson in underestimating other species. It had cost the hegemony 2 billion lives. Council Leader drummed her 4 arms on her platform, thinking, "Very well, we will send a scout fleet to investigate. If there is a human colony, we will assess their capabilities and report back. And if they are hostile, then we will deal with them as we deal with all threats." His mandibles clicked together in the equivalent of a smile. 42 ships against a hidden colony of primitives. What could possibly go wrong? Wanted to argue, but he knew it would be pointless. The council had made its decision. All he could do now was go along with the scout fleet and hope that his fears were unfounded. They weren't. Back on Moon 3, Director Sora addressed the emergency session of the 7 councils. Representatives from all 7 moons filled the chamber, their faces showing fear, anger, and uncertainty. "We have 6 days," Sora told them. 6 days to decide the future of our civilization. We can run, scatter ourselves across the void and hope they don't find us. We can hide deeper, pray that our stealth technology is good enough. Or we can do something else entirely. She paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of her people. "We can show them exactly who we are, and we can make sure they never forget it." The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. New would not run, New would not hide. New would make first contact, on their own terms. The scout fleet moved through space like a swarm of metal insects. 42 ships of various sizes, from small patrol craft to medium cruisers, all following the coordinates extracted from the captured probe. First Observer stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching the stars slide past on the main display. He had not slept well since leaving space. The data from the probe haunted him. Every time he closed his compound eyes, he saw those power readings, those impossible alloys, those detailed maps of hegemony positions. Whoever these humans were, they had been watching for a very long time. Entering the target system, the navigation officer announced. No contacts on long-range scanners. Fleet Commander made a clicking sound of satisfaction. As expected, these humans are hiding, probably in some underground bunker, hoping we pass them by. Begin systematic sweep of all planetary bodies. Said nothing, but his unease grew stronger. If these humans were as primitive as the Council believed, why couldn't he shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap? The first sign of trouble came 3 hours later. "Commander, we have a navigation error," the helm officer reported, confusion evident in her voice. "Our position doesn't match our projected course. We're approximately 40,000 kilometers off target." His mandibles twitched with irritation. "Recalibrate and correct." "I've tried, Commander. The instruments insist we're on course, but visual confirmation shows otherwise. It's as if—" She trailed off, unable to explain. "As if someone is feeding false data to our navigation systems," finished quietly. Turned to look at him. "That's impossible. Our systems are encrypted with hegemony military codes. No one could." "Commander," another officer interrupted, her voice rising with alarm. "I'm picking up ghost signals on the communication array, hundreds of them. They're not coming from any of our ships." The bridge fell silent. On the main display, the communication readout showed a cascade of signals bouncing through the fleet's network, signals that shouldn't exist, coming from sources that didn't appear on any scanner. Felt his blood run cold. They were inside the fleet's communications. They had been inside from the moment they entered the system. Over the next 4 days, the scout fleet fell apart piece by piece. It started with small things: navigation errors that sent ships off course, communication glitches that garbled orders, sensor malfunctions that showed phantom readings. The crew blamed equipment failure, solar radiation, anything that made sense. But then the accidents began. 3 ships collided with debris fields that appeared on no scanner until the moment of impact. 2 more suffered catastrophic engine failures, not explosions, but careful shutdowns that left them drifting without power. A patrol craft simply vanished, its crew reporting strange lights outside their viewports before all contact was lost. They found the patrol craft 2 days later, intact but empty. The crew was gone. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no explanation. Just empty corridors and silent rooms, as if everyone had simply stepped out for a moment and never returned. Spent his nights reviewing the sensor logs, searching for patterns. What he found terrified him more than anything else. The attacks, if they could be called attacks, were not random. They were precise, surgical. Each incident targeted a specific system or a specific ship, always in a way that caused maximum disruption with minimum casualties. Whoever was doing this didn't want to kill them. They wanted to show them how easily they could. On the 5th day, every screen on every ship in the fleet went dark at exactly the same moment. For 3 seconds, there was nothing but blackness and the sound of panicked breathing. Then the screens lit up again, all of them displaying the same image. A human woman looked out at them. She had a calm face, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to see right through the camera. She wore a simple gray uniform with no rank insignia, no medals, nothing that suggested military authority. But the way she held herself, the way she looked at them, knew immediately that he was looking at a leader. "I am Director Sara of New," the woman said. She spoke in perfect trade language, her pronunciation flawless. "You have entered our territory without invitation. Your communications have been monitored since you crossed our perimeter. Your navigation systems have been under our control for 4 days. 3 of your ships are currently experiencing what your engineers believe are random malfunctions. They are not random." She paused, letting that sink in. "This is not a declaration of war. We have no interest in destroying your fleet. We have no interest in conquering your worlds. We simply wish to be left alone for now. You are free to leave. You are free to report what you have seen to your superiors. In fact, We encourage it. Accurate reporting will prevent future misunderstandings." Her expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained sharp. "You have 6 hours to withdraw from our space. After that, we will be forced to take more direct action. I hope that won't be necessary." Director Sora out. The screens returned to normal. The bridge was silent except for the hum of machinery and the rapid clicking of mandibles, a sign of extreme stress. Fleet Commander stood frozen at his station, his 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. Had never seen a commander look so lost. Commander said gently, "We need to withdraw." "Withdraw?" His voice was hollow. "Withdraw from what? We don't even know what we're facing. We don't know how many ships they have, how many soldiers, what weapons." "We know enough," gestured at the darkened screens around them. "They've been inside our systems from the beginning. They could have destroyed us at any moment. They chose not to. That tells us everything we need to know about their capabilities and their intentions." Stood in silence for a long moment, then his shoulders slumped. "Signal the fleet, we're leaving." 29 ships turned and fled immediately, their crews eager to put as much distance as possible between themselves and whatever lurked in this system. But 13 ships remained, some because their captains were too proud to retreat, others because they were too curious about what they had encountered. Those 13 ships never made it home. Admiral watched the operation from the command center on Moon 3. She was 47 years old, with silver hair and a face that showed no emotion as she directed her forces. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored the battle, if it could be called a battle. The new ships moved like ghosts. They appeared out of nowhere, disabled a vessel with precise strikes to its engines and weapons, then vanished before anyone could get a targeting lock. The entire engagement lasted 6 minutes. When it was over, 13 ships drifted in the void, their weapons stripped, their engines dead, their long-range communications destroyed. But their life support systems were intact. Their crews were alive. Admiral reviewed the final report and frowned. 6 minutes, she said. "We're getting slow." Her aide, a young officer named Minyu, looked at her with disbelief. "Admiral, we just disabled 13 enemy warships without a single casualty on either side. In 6 minutes. In the simulations, we do it in 4. His frown deepened. "We've gotten complacent. Schedule additional training exercises for all combat units." "Yes, Admiral," Minyu paused. "What about the crews, the survivors?" "Leave them. Their rescue ships will arrive in approximately 3 days. They have enough supplies to last." Turned away from the display. "And make sure they see our patrol ships before they leave. I want them to know exactly how outmatched they were." Director Sora was waiting when returned to the council chamber. The older woman looked tired but satisfied. "The operation was a success," Sora said. "It was a statement, not a question." "Complete success. 0 casualties on our side, 0 deaths on theirs. 13 ships disabled, crews intact." Sat down across from the director. "They'll report what happened. The whole galaxy will know about us within a month." "Good." Sora leaned back in her chair. 300 years of hiding is enough. It's time to step out of the shadows. "And if they come back with a bigger fleet?" Sora smiled slightly. "Then we'll show them what else we can do." 12 light-years away, First Observer composed his report to the Hegemony Council. His hands trembled as he wrote. He described the ghost signals, the navigation failures, the impossible precision of the human attacks. He described Director Sora's message and the 6-minute battle that had crippled 13 ships without killing a single. He ended the report with a warning that would echo through the halls of power across the galaxy. "These humans are not primitives. They are not refugees. They are a civilization that has spent 300 years preparing for this moment. They allowed us to find them. They allowed us to enter their space. And they allowed us to leave so we could deliver this message. They are ready. The question is, are we?" The report from First Observer arrived at the Galactic Concord headquarters like a bomb. Within hours, it had spread from the delegation to the intelligence services of a dozen other species. Within days, every major power in the galaxy was talking about the humans of New. High Arbiter called an emergency summit. Was a crystalline being, ancient even by galactic standards. Their body was made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light when they spoke, and they had served as the Concord's chief diplomat for over 2,000 years. In all that time, they had never seen the Grand Chamber in such chaos. Representatives from 87 species filled the massive hall, their voices overlapping in a dozen different languages. The translation matrices could barely keep up. Arguments broke out between delegations. Accusations flew back and forth. And through it all, one word kept repeating: humans. Order's voice resonated through the chamber, silencing the crowd. We will have order or we will have nothing at all. The representatives fell silent, though the tension remained thick enough to cut. We have all reviewed First Observer's report, continued. We have all seen the footage from the scout fleet. The evidence is clear. There is a human civilization in the 442 system, and they possess technology far beyond anything we expected from that species. How is this possible? Demanded Representative, a massive reptilian being from the Confederation. Humans are a pre-contact species. They haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel on there. These are not humans, replied. According to our analysis, they are descendants of a colony ship that left Earth approximately 300 of their years ago. They have been developing independently ever since. Developing? Scales rippled with disbelief. In 300 years, they've surpassed civilizations that have existed for. That's not development. That's impossible. And yet the evidence suggests otherwise. Crystalline form pulsed slowly. The question before us now is not how they achieved this. The question is what we do about it. The debate raged for hours. Some representatives wanted to send a diplomatic mission to welcome these humans into the galactic community. Others wanted to send a military fleet to contain the threat before it grew any larger. Still others argued for ignoring them entirely, hoping that if left alone, they would not cause trouble. First Observer, attending via holographic projection, listened to the arguments with growing frustration. Finally, he requested permission to speak. High Arbiter, he said, I was there. I saw what they can do, and I believe we are making a dangerous mistake. Explain, said. We are treating them as either friends or enemies, but they are neither. They are something new. His compound eyes swept across the chamber. For 300 years they have been watching us, learning from us. They know our military positions, our trade routes, our diplomatic weaknesses. They have had centuries to prepare for this moment, and when we finally discovered them, they didn't run or fight. They let us go so we could tell everyone else what we saw. He paused. They wanted us to be afraid, and they wanted us to know exactly how afraid we should be. The chamber fell silent. What do you suggest? Asked. I suggest we stop underestimating them. Send a diplomatic fleet, yes, but make it strong enough to defend itself. And more importantly, listen to what they want. They could have destroyed my fleet. They didn't. That means something. After another 3 hours of debate, the Concord reached a decision. They would send a diplomatic fleet of 200 ships, including 17 dreadnoughts, to the 442 system. The fleet would attempt peaceful contact, but it would be prepared for hostility. The fleet departed 7 days later. On New, Director Sora received the news with calm acceptance. 200 ships, said Han, her intelligence chief. 17 dreadnoughts. That's enough firepower to crack a planet. They're afraid, Sora replied. Afraid of what we are, afraid of what we might become. The dreadnoughts are not for attack. They're for reassurance, their own reassurance. And if they do attack? Sora looked at with tired eyes. Then we will defend ourselves, but I don't think it will come to that. They're too curious. They want to understand us before they decide whether to destroy us." She turned to Admiral, who had been standing silently by the window. "How long do we have?" 19 days until they arrive," replied. "Enough time to prepare the Revelation Protocol." The Revelation Protocol was Nu's plan for introducing themselves to the galaxy. It had been developed over decades, refined through countless simulations and debates. The basic idea was simple: show the conquered enough strength to earn respect, but not so much that they felt threatened. It was a delicate balance, and everything depended on getting it right. Over the next 19 days, Nu transformed itself. Ships that had been hidden in underground hangars were brought to the surface. Stations that had been running in stealth mode activated their full power systems. And Station, the crown jewel of Nu's infrastructure, was revealed for the first time. Was massive, a structure the size of a small moon that served as the central hub of human civilization in the system. It contained shipyards, research facilities, living quarters for millions of people, and the administrative center from which Director Sara governed her people. For 80 years, it had been hidden behind layers of stealth technology, invisible to any scanner in the galaxy. Now, by careful design, it became visible, but only after the conquered fleet had already taken their long-range readings of empty space. The effect was exactly what Sora intended. While the military prepared, the diplomatic corps worked on a different kind of preparation. Minyu, the young translator who had impressed Admiral during the encounter, was assigned to lead the linguistic team. Minyu was 29 years old, with a round face and gentle eyes that hid a mind sharp enough to learn a new language in weeks. He had mastered 14 alien languages and was working on his 15th when he received the assignment. "The High Arbiter speaks through a translation matrix," Sora explained during their briefing. "But matrices miss nuance. I need someone who can hear what they really mean, not just what they say." "I understand, Director," Minyu replied. "I've been studying crystalline communication patterns. They express emotion through light frequencies, not vocal tone. Most species miss the signals entirely." Sora smiled slightly. "That's why I chose you. When the time comes, I need you to tell me not just what they're saying, but what they're feeling." "I will, Director." The final days before contact were tense. The entire civilization held its breath, waiting to see how the galaxy would respond to their existence. Children asked their parents what would happen. Workers paused in their duties to watch the news feeds. Soldiers checked their weapons and hoped they wouldn't need to use them. And then, 19 days after leaving conquered space, the diplomatic fleet arrived. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, their sensors already scanning for threats. What they found made them stop in disbelief. Where their long-range readings had shown empty space, there now stood Station, surrounded by 312 human warships. The station's power readings were off the charts, more energy than some species used for their entire civilization. The warships were small compared to conquered dreadnoughts, but their power signatures suggested weapons that could punch through any known armor. High Arbiter stood on the bridge of their flagship, their crystalline form flickering with colors that translated to shock, confusion, and grudging respect. "They built this in 19 days, their tactical officer whispered. Knew better. They understood now what had tried to tell them. The humans hadn't built anything in 19 days. They had simply decided to let the conquered see what had always been there. A message arrived, quantum encrypted and delivered directly to his personal terminal. "High Arbiter, welcome to Nu. Director Sara requests the honor of your presence at a diplomatic meeting. Neutral ground has been prepared on our outer moon. You may bring 12 advisors of your choosing. We look forward to productive discussions." Read the message twice, then began to laugh, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "High Arbiter," their aide asked nervously, "is something wrong?" "Wrong?" Colors shifted to something like amusement. No, nothing is wrong. I'm simply impressed. These humans have been playing the long game for 300 years, and we never even knew we were in the match. They straightened, their crystalline form catching the light. Prepare my shuttle. It seems I have a meeting to attend. The meeting chamber had been built specifically for this moment. It sat on the surface of Moon 7, a dome of transparent crystal that offered a view of the stars in every direction. The floor was heated to accommodate species that preferred warmth. The air mixture had been calibrated to suit a dozen different respiratory systems. Every detail had been considered, every possibility planned for. Director Sara arrived first, accompanied only by Admiral and Translator Minu. She wore a simple gray suit, the same style she wore every day. No medals, no symbols of rank, nothing to suggest the power she wielded. She wanted the conquered representatives to see a leader, not a warrior. High Arbiter arrived 20 minutes later, their crystalline form casting rainbows across the chamber floor. Behind them came 12 advisors representing 12 different species, the most powerful civilizations in the conquered, each one watching the humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. For a long moment, neither side spoke. They simply looked at each other, taking measure. Then stepped forward, their body pulsing with soft blue light, a color that Minu recognized as formal greeting. Director Sara said through their translation matrix, "On behalf of the Galactic Conquered, I thank you for this meeting." "The thanks are mine, High Arbiter." Sara inclined her head slightly. "Please be seated, we have much to discuss." They sat at a circular table, humans on one side, aliens on the other. The first hour was devoted to formalities, introductions, statements of purpose, the ritual exchanges that all civilizations seem to require. But beneath the polite words, tension crackled like electricity. Finally, decided to address the obvious. "Director Sara, I must be direct with you. Your existence presents the conquered with a difficult problem." "I'm aware," Sara replied calmly. "You have violated 17 treaties by establishing a colony in neutral space. You have maintained a military presence without conquered authorization. You have developed weapons that appear to exceed anything in our combined arsenals." Colors shifted to stern purple. "These are not small matters." "No, they are not." Sara met's gaze without flinching. "But I would remind the High Arbiter that those treaties were written by species who decided, without consulting us, that humans were not worthy of participation in galactic affairs. We were classified as primitives, to be watched and studied like animals in a preserve. That classification was based on observed evidence. That classification was based on Earth." Sara's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the words. "And Earth is not all of humanity. We left Earth 300 years ago. We built our own civilization, developed our own technologies, created our own future. We did this without the Conquered's help, without the Conquered's permission, and without the Conquered's knowledge." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We are not asking to be forgiven for existing. We are not asking for special treatment or exceptions to your rules. We are simply asking to be recognized as what we are, a sovereign civilization, equal to any other." The chamber fell silent. Minu watched the light patterns playing across crystalline body, shifting from purple to gold to deep red, emotions too complex for the translation matrix to capture. One of the advisors, a reptilian being that Minu recognized as representative of the Confederation, leaned forward aggressively. Equal voice was a low growl. "You've been hiding for 3 centuries. You've been spying on us, learning our secrets, building weapons in the shadows. Why should we trust anything you say?" Admiral spoke for the first time. Her voice was ice. "Because if we wanted to harm you, we would have done it already." Scales rippled with anger. "Is that a threat?" "It's a statement of fact." The expression didn't change. "Your scout fleet entered our space with 42 ships. We disabled 13 of them in 6 minutes without killing a single crew member. We could have destroyed them all in the same amount of time. We chose not to." She gestured toward the transparent dome, where conquered dreadnoughts hung in the distance like distant stars. "You brought 17 dreadnoughts to this meeting. Our sensors identified their shield frequencies, weapon configurations, and structural weaknesses before they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. We have had targeting solutions locked on every ship in your fleet since you arrived." She paused. "We have not fired. We do not intend to fire, but make no mistake, if you force us to defend ourselves, you will lose." The silence that followed was absolute. Minyu watched the alien advisors carefully. He saw fear in some, anger in others, but beneath it all he saw something else: respect. They understood now that they were not dealing with a primitive species, not with refugees, not with upstarts who needed to be taught their place. They were dealing with equals. Director Sora raised her hand slightly and fell silent. "Admiral speaks bluntly," Sora said, "but she speaks the truth. We have the capability to defend ourselves against any threat the conquered might pose. However, defense is not our goal. Our goal is cooperation." She reached into her jacket and a small data chip, which she placed on the table. "This contains the specifications for 3 technologies we are prepared to share with the conquered. The first is a water purification system that can provide clean drinking water to billions of people on drought-stricken worlds. The second is a medical treatment that can extend natural by several decades. The third is a communication protocol that reduces interstellar message delay by 40%. She pushed the chip toward. "These are gifts, freely given. We ask nothing in return except the opportunity to prove that we can be good neighbors." His crystalline form flickered with surprise. "You would share technology of this value, without conditions." "We have conditions," Sora admitted, "but they are simple ones. First, we want recognition as a sovereign civilization within the conquered framework. Second, we want our territorial boundaries respected. Third, we want a guarantee that Earth, our, will be protected from exploitation until they are ready to join the galactic community on their own terms." "Earth," another advisor spoke up, a tall being that Minyu didn't recognize. "Why do you care about Earth? You left them 300 years ago." Sora's expression softened slightly. "We left Earth, but we never stopped being human. They are our family, even if they don't know we exist. We will not allow anyone to harm them." Studied the data chip for a long moment, then looked up at Sora with new interest. "And what of your weapons, your military technology? Will you share those as well?" "No," Sora's answer was immediate and final. "Our defensive capabilities are not for sale, trade, or negotiation. They exist to protect our people, and they will remain ours alone." "Some might see that as a threat." "Some might," Sora shrugged slightly. "But trust is earned slowly. We have only just met, High Arbiter. Perhaps in time, as we learn to work together, our relationship will grow. For now, we offer what we can, and we keep what we must." The negotiations continued for another 6 hours. There were arguments, objections, demands, and counter-demands. Several of the advisors threatened to walk out, had to intervene multiple times to keep the discussions from collapsing entirely. But through it all, Sora remained calm. She conceded where she could, held firm where she had to, and never once raised her voice. Minyu translated not just her words but the subtle meanings behind them, helping her navigate the complex web of alien politics. Finally, as the artificial sun began to set over Moon 7, raised their crystalline hand. "I believe we have the framework of an agreement," they said. "The details will need to be worked out over the coming weeks, but the basic terms are clear. Nu will be recognized as a sovereign human civilization, with full membership in the Galactic Concord. Your territorial claims will be respected. Earth will be placed under protected status until they achieve spacefaring capability on their own." They paused, their colors shifting to something like warmth. "In exchange, you will share the technologies you have offered, participate in conquered diplomatic processes, and abide by the same laws that govern all member species. Is this acceptable? Sora looked then at Minu. Both nodded slightly. It is acceptable, Sora said. We look forward to a long and productive relationship with the conquered. She extended her hand, a human gesture of agreement, hesitated for a moment, then reached out with one crystalline limb and touched her palm. The deal was struck. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, First Observer approached Director Sora. He had been granted permission to attend the meeting as an observer, given his role in discovering new. Director, he said, his compound eyes studying her with intense curiosity, may I ask you something? Of course. Why did you let us find you? Your probe malfunction, your stealth failures, they weren't accidents, were they? Sora smiled slightly. You're very perceptive, First Observer. I've had time to think, tilted his head. You wanted to be discovered. You wanted us to send a fleet so you could demonstrate your capabilities without starting a war. You wanted this meeting. We wanted the opportunity to choose how we entered galactic society, Sora said. 300 years ago, my ancestors fled a world that was tearing itself apart. They swore that their descendants would never be victims again. We've spent centuries preparing for this moment, not to conquer, but to ensure that when we finally stepped out of the shadows, we would do so as equals. She looked out at the stars through the transparent dome. The universe is vast, First Observer. There's room enough for all of us, but only if we respect each other. That's the lesson we've learned. That's the lesson we hope to teach. Was silent for a moment. Then he bowed, a gesture of respect among his people. I think, he said slowly, that the galaxy is going to be a very different place with humans in it. Sora's smile widened. I certainly hope so. The Treaty of was signed 47 days after the first meeting between Director Sora and High Arbiter. The signing ceremony was held in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Concord, broadcast to trillions of beings across hundreds of star systems. It was the most watched event in galactic history. Director Sora stood before the assembled representatives, a single human among a sea of alien faces. She wore the same simple gray suit she always wore, her expression calm and composed. Behind her, a holographic display showed the seal of new 7 stars arranged in a circle, representing the 7 moons that humanity had claimed as their own. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter, Sora said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation matrices. For 300 years, my people lived in the shadows, building and preparing and waiting. That time is over. From this day forward, new takes its place among the civilizations of the galaxy, not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners and equals. She paused, looking out at the faces before her. We bring with us the lessons of our history. We know what it means to be feared and dismissed. We know the cost of isolation and the value of cooperation. We offer the conquered our friendship, our technology, and our hope for a future where all species can thrive together. High Arbiter stepped forward, their crystalline form glowing with warm golden light. On behalf of the Galactic Conquered, I accept this treaty and welcome Nu as a full member of our community. May this be the first of many agreements between our peoples. The chamber erupted in applause, or at least the various alien equivalents of applause. Tentacles waved, mandibles clicked, crystalline bodies chimed in harmony. For the first time in galactic history, humanity had a voice in the affairs of the universe. The weeks that followed were chaotic but hopeful. New delegations traveled to a dozen different systems, establishing trade relationships and diplomatic ties. The technologies they had promised, water purification, medical treatments, communication improvements, were delivered as gifts, earning goodwill from species who had expected to be exploited. First Observer was granted asylum on station at his own request. He had become something of a celebrity among the scout who had discovered the humans and lived to tell about it. but he found himself more interested in understanding the humans than in basking in fame. Admiral assigned him quarters near the station's historical archives, where he spent his days studying human history and his evenings writing observations for the memoirs he had begun to compose. "You are a strange species," he told Director Sara one evening when she visited him for tea, a human custom he had come to enjoy. "You fled here to escape destruction, yet you did not become bitter or vengeful. You built something beautiful in the darkness." Sara sipped her tea, considering his words. "We had a choice," she said finally. "We could have become what we feared. We could have used our technology to conquer, to dominate, to take revenge on a universe that ignored us. But that wasn't what our ancestors wanted. They left Earth to build something better, not something worse. And yet, you developed weapons capable of destroying fleets in minutes." "We did," Sara set down her cup, "because being peaceful doesn't mean being defenseless. Our ancestors learned that lesson the hard way. They fled Earth because they were tired of war, but they knew that peace requires strength. The ability to protect yourself is what gives you the freedom to choose not to fight." Nodded slowly. "Among my people, there is a saying, 'The strongest warrior is the one who never draws their blade.'" "We have a similar saying," Sora smiled. "Walk softly and carry a big stick." His memoirs, published 3 years later under the title The Patient Predators, became required reading in diplomatic academies across the galaxy. It offered an outsider's perspective on human civilization, their patience, their determination, their strange combination of gentleness and strength. It helped bridge the gap between species who had spent viewing humans as primitives and the reality of what humanity had become. Director Sara retired from public life 3 years after the treaty was signed. She was 74 years old, her hair fully silver now, her face lined with the weight of years and responsibility. She had led Nu through its most important transition, and she believed it was time for younger leaders to guide them into the future. Her final speech to the Seven Councils was brief but memorable. "Our ancestors fled a world that was tearing itself apart," she said, her voice strong despite her age. "They could have become bitter. They could have become conquerors. Instead, they chose to build something worth protecting. We honored that choice, not by hiding forever and not by dominating others, but by standing as equals in a universe that expected us to be less." She paused, looking out at the faces of her people. Nearly 1 billion souls spread across 7 moons, all of them watching this moment. "Never forget what we are capable of," she said softly, "and never forget to be worthy of it." The applause lasted for several minutes. When it finally died down, Sora walked off the stage and into retirement, leaving Nu in the hands of a new generation. 70 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways both expected and surprising. The hegemony formed a trade alliance with Nu, their old suspicions giving way to mutual respect. The Confederation, once among the most skeptical of human intentions, became one of their closest partners. And across hundreds of star systems, beings who had never seen a human learned to recognize them as friends rather than strangers. Earth changed too, though more slowly. The of humanity crawled forward, solving its resource wars and environmental crises one painful step at a time. They developed fusion power, then primitive space travel, then the first experimental faster-than-light engines. They had no idea that their cousins among the stars were watching over them, protecting them from exploitation until they were ready to stand on their own. The first diplomatic ship from Earth arrived at station on a bright morning in the local calendar. The ship was small and primitive by galactic standards, a converted research vessel with a crew of 47 scientists and diplomats who had been sent to investigate strange signals coming from the system. They expected to find aliens. They did not expect to find humans. Was waiting for them when they docked. She was 28 years old, with her grandmother's gentle eyes and her great-grandmother's steel spine. She was the great-great-granddaughter of one of the original colonists who had fled Earth 300 years ago, and she had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. The airlock opened, and the Earth delegation stepped out onto the station deck. They wore environmental suits, uncertain what kind of atmosphere they would find. They carried scanning equipment, ready to analyze alien technology. They spoke in nervous whispers, their hearts pounding with the fear and excitement of first contact. Then they saw, standing alone in the middle of the deck, wearing a simple gray uniform and a warm smile. "Welcome to station," she said in perfect Korean. I'll be your liaison while you're here." The Earth delegation stood frozen, their mouths hanging open. One of them, a young scientist named Lee, was the first to find his voice. You're human," he stammered. "Yes," smile widened. "We've been waiting for you for a very long time." "But where did you come from? How is this possible?" Gestured toward the observation windows, where the vast expanse of Nu spread out before them, cities gleaming on 7 moons, ships moving between stations, a civilization that had grown in secret for 3 centuries. "It's a long story," she said. 300 years long, actually, but we have time." She extended her hand in greeting, the same gesture Director Sora had used when she first met High Arbiter all those years ago. "Welcome to Nu," said. "We have a lot to catch up on." Lee took her hand, still struggling to process what he was seeing. Behind him, his began to emerge from the airlock, each one stopping in amazement as they realized what they had found. Not aliens, not strangers, family. In the historical archives of the station, a copy of Director Sora's final speech played on a loop, preserved for future generations. Her words echoed through the halls, a reminder of where they had come from and who they had chosen to become. "Never forget what we are capable of, and never forget to be worthy of it." The humans of Nu had built their civilization on that foundation. They had hidden when they needed to hide, revealed themselves when the time was right, and earned their place among the stars through patience and strength and wisdom. And now, at last, they were whole again. Earth and Nu, separated for 300 years, finally reunited under the same stars. The universe would never be the same. But then again, that was always the plan.